I'm a feminist, but I recently was asked to do a reading at the anniversary of the Women's Prize for Fiction and Non-Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I got caught on the back stairs with Malala. It's a very exciting moment.
Very
She normally has a
exciting
lot of
moment.
security with her. So I've
Yeah.
done a gig with her before, but I didn't really meet her because she has security and she comes in one door and goes out another.
He is Malala.
She came down some stairs and it was just her and me on the stairs. And I said, oh, I'm a big fan and I'd love to have a photo. Got chatting. And she said, absolutely. Took a selfie and she went, no, that's not good enough. I don't like the lighting. She said, and she called one of her security guys and said, Mike, whoever it was, can you go down there and take it? And then Mike took it and she went, I don't know. I don't like that. And don't get my shoes in. I don't like my shoes. And I could not have been more thrilled.
That is so glorious.
To discover that Malala then conducted a full photo shoot where we had to go down the other way where the lighting was better. He had to stand on the stairs. To be fair, that was my
Yep,
feminist
that always
part.
works, right?
He should be up and we should be down.
Yeah, that's right. We are then taller, thinner, and all that crap gets in. Even, I love this, even to Malala.
I couldn't have been more thrilled that she conducted the photo shoot in a way where, just for good lighting and just for the best possible shot. And we had time. We had nothing else to do because I think she couldn't go down until her security guys had gone further. So this was a perfectly reasonable use of our time. But it made me so happy that Malala was going, don't like that shot. Don't get my shoes in. I was like, this really does prove that I'm a feminist, but
it's perfect.
It's for everyone.
Exactly.
It's for everyone.
Well, my own tiny version is that I'm a feminist, but I did message you 2 days ago to go, is this going to be on YouTube or somewhere? Because if it is, and it's 9:30 on a Sunday morning, though it could be any time when you're listening. And as a listener to the podcast, I don't watch podcasts. I was like, if so, I need to be wearing makeup because it's all right for you. A, you have big glasses. B, you have dark eyebrows and dark eyelashes. But this pale ginger woman who is covered in freckles, and even though my hair is now white, which I adore, am still a ginger at heart. I have pale ginger eyelashes. Without mascara, I do not have any eyes, Deb. None.
You do have eyes. You do have eyes. But I see you as a very hearty, grounded feminist. Of the people in my life, you were a feminist and talking about being a feminist before anybody else I knew. And you were an active feminist in an era which was much more about girl power. You were an active feminist and you were a chartered lesbian.
Well, exactly, a chartered lesbian. I had come from Aotearoa, New Zealand, where we had a Minister of Women's Affairs in 1985, where we gave the vote to women 25 years before Britain. Then I arrived in London, where I was born, and therefore, as you know, like you, have 2 passports, few. I arrived in London where I was born in 1986. They still had page 3 girls, and people were still trying to argue for, it's their choice. It's like, and it's the men's choice to ogle at them. And people still whispered and said, cheer up, love. I was like, oh my God, I have come to this country, and yes, Thatcher was in power. I have come to this country where feminism is a bad word. It was shocking.
Yeah, it was that must have been a tough move from New Zealand. Wasn't so tough coming from Australia, because I don't think we got the vote earlier than the UK.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Different states, actually, Adelaide. God bless Adelaide.
Oh, because they had a lady name, so they had to give the vote to women sooner.
Adelaide.
Adelaide.
Yeah, but didn't New Zealand get the vote? Wasn't it the first country in the world to get the vote?
1883, and amazingly, I mean, my Māori friends, my Samoan friends will tell you, no, Aotearoa New Zealand is not fixed on racism, and I agree with them. But amazingly, the vote wasn't just for white women. So even back in 1883, Aotearoa wasn't just doing white feminism. The vote was also for Māori women. I think you had to be over 30, and I think you had to own property, but that was the same for Pakeha for white women, which is astonishing. I mean,
Yeah.
really astonishing. But
I
that's
mean, it
but
still feels like
Polynesian.
a very progressive country to me,
Oh,
although
but
I
Polynesian
think the
culture has.
current government, not so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Well, the current government is problematic, exactly. But Polynesian culture has always had a place for older women. Always, it respects older women. And the thing is that, to go back to your Malala story, right? So I'm definitely a feminist, but I too look for the skinny mirrors. I too know that being photographed from above really works. But I too had the great good fortune of growing up in a small town, Aotearoa, where older women, older Māori women, older Samoan women, older Tongan women were respected. And that meant that I had an unusual proto-feminist experience in thinking that getting old wasn't necessarily going to be terrible. And that's amazing.
I'm a feminist, but I don't share that at all. I was raised in Queensland in Australia,
Yeah.
and it was absolutely stay young and beautiful. It's important to be beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Stay young and beautiful if you want to be loved. To quote the lyrics of an ironic song, but it wasn't. I heard that first time I heard that song. I didn't know it was ironic because I lived on the Gold Coast. It
Yeah.
was all about being as small as possible, and I for women to be like petite, very, very petite, and I was never going to be that.
Mm-hmm.
I was never ever going to be that because I'm 5'9" and I'm broad, and my skeleton is a size 12. Like it's not going to happen that I'm going to be petite. So I internalized all of that stuff.
Yes.
Having said that, I'm a feminist, and I think I've done a really good job
Mm-hmm.
of deprogramming and unpacking. It doesn't mean I don't still have a lot of residue and some tent poles, but I think given the circumstances, I've done really well.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good sometimes because I think the terrible loop is, oh, I've internalized patriarchy. Oh, I'm bad for internalizing patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why haven't I stopped that by
Mm-hmm.
now? And in this terrible loop of you're blaming yourself for the blaming, I blame myself for this. I shouldn't blame myself for this. That's even more guilt.
Yes.
Which is why I like I'm a feminist. But sometimes people go, oh, why are you guilty if you're a feminist? You've got nothing to be guilty for. And I'm like, it's kind of, it's an acknowledgement that we carry these things and we feel guilty for them. And it's ridiculous and it's funny, and that's why they're punchlines.
But we can't undo it. We live in this world. We live in this world. I was born in 1963. I have lived in a world that hates women's bodies my entire life. Therefore,
idolizes them.
At the same time, but I only idolize
overly sexualizes them.
If we're thin, skinny, white, I mean, all the bullshit. I have fought my body since puberty. I have fought it since I was 11, and I hate that, and I want to love it, and particularly given how sick this beautiful body has been and survived, and yet I'm a feminist, but I still have that shit from the world. The best thing I can do is to ignore it as much as possible, notice when it's happening, occasionally dig out a bit more of my internalized sexism and my internalized misogyny, and do my damnedest to love what I am now anyway. We live in a culture that has done this to us. We have to not blame ourselves. And you're right, that is why I'm a feminist, but works. Because it's a joke.
It's slightly just realizing it's risible and laughing at it, rather than going, I don't hold. Sometimes people say, well, I don't feel guilty about anything. And I think that's probably not true. And I think it's better to acknowledge it. And if you don't, then great, go
if
go
you don't,
for it.
if you really don't, I'm delighted for you. But I'd be stunned if, I've dealt with my internalized homophobia. I've dealt with my internalized misogyny. These things come round again and again. They come in waves.
They do. They pop their head up. They do. From a variety of bedrooms and kitchens via Riverside, the Spontaneity Shop presents The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Frances-White, guest co-host Stella Duffy, and our very special guest Emma Walker, talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. . This is The Guilty Feminist, the podcast in which we explore our noble goals as 21st century feminists and the hypocrisies and insecurities which undermine them. I'm Deborah Frances-White, and I'm joined today by my amazing co-host, who is an existential psychotherapist in private practice, having also worked in cancer support in the NHS and hospice bereavement support. I know her as a comedian of old because we used to improvise together back in the day, and by back in the day, I do mean the Blitz was over, but just.
Only just.
She's also an award-winning writer of 17 novels, over 70 short stories and 15 plays, and is a theatre maker with a particular interest in the creative possibilities of existential psychotherapy. Please welcome Stella Duffy.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here, neither from a bedroom nor from a kitchen. This is actually, you can't really see, I've got an office. I've got an office in my house. And now that I'm a therapist who sometimes sees people online, it's like, come into my office. Like I've got a proper job and everything.
So fancy, because I still know you as a comedy person, an improv person.
As a jobbing, not very good stand-up, much better improviser, yes.
Yes. As someone said to me the other day, a stay-at-home actress.
But you see, Deborah, the thing is that therapy is just like improvising. I mean, I work with couples and I work with individuals. All I'm doing is saying to people, yes. And then they give me a bit more of their story.
Yes.
Try and make sense of that. So it's yes and, it's accept and build. It's trying to make sense of their narrative in the way they want to tell it. I'm very keen to start teaching improv for psychotherapists because I think therapists really need it. And we know that that improv is about listening. So we already have the skills before.
Yes.
See? Perfect.
And you just can put a little bit more down.
That's right.
Too controlling. Therapists are great at. They should be.
Well, yes, but I'm also slightly less responsible for making them laugh.
Well, I like to make my therapist laugh. I go on and off therapy and I'll have little periods of it. I've never been able to maintain it. Partly my lifestyle, I'll get really busy with something. But if I make my therapist laugh, I always feel that's the toughest audience.
It is, although laughter can be a deflection, says the therapist. When I had my first breast cancer when I was 36, I saw a cancer therapist then, and after about 4 weeks, she said, Stella, you're welcome to keep sitting there performing for me, but we could actually just get on with the work, seeing as you're paying. And I went, yeah, okay, all right then.
Wow.
I know, good on her, right? Like really sharp.
Every performer I know says that they kind of can outsmart their therapist by doing a performance, by performing, here's some things, but I'm keeping all these things.
Yes.
And I can tell a good story. And so I think for many performers and storytellers, comedians, writers, therapy is another place to perform. I think that's really common.
But we need to shut the fuck up and listen to our actual story, not the story we've rehearsed. Because the stories we've rehearsed, they're not therapy. It's the stories we haven't.
I know. But then I have to admit things. I don't know if I want to do that. I think I'll just die a bit fucked up.
Okay. We're all going to die fucked up. I'm an existential therapist. We're all going to die fucked up, but we might die with a bit more choice and responsibility for our fuck-ups if we address them honestly.
I don't really know what an existential therapist is.
Yeah, neither did I until I had one, and then I suddenly discovered.
I know what an existential crisis is.
Well, it's the same idea. So with my second breast cancer, I was 50, and I fantastically got off it. And I was having I'd started Fun Palaces. I was on the steering committee of the Women's Equality Party. I was really engaged, and I was completely ignoring the fact that I was having a second breast cancer because I was doing my damnedest to run away from it. To the extent of getting out of a bed. No, I mean, I'd come home, but I'd been in hospital 10 days earlier having a full mastectomy and reconstruction. I'm a feminist, but I had a breast mastectomy reconstruction, whole other story. and completely unhealed, and still went and made a speech to 500 people at the WOW Festival down the road at the South Bank, because I was so desperate to not acknowledge that I was sick again. And I really needed some support because I was working all the hours, I was pushing myself, I was doing everything to run away from having cancer again because it was terrifying. And fantastically, the hospital connected me because they had a psychological support group, and I only had to wait 3 months then. I think the waiting list is even longer now. With a therapist who turned out to be existential. And I had never heard of existential therapy, but an existential therapist works with you on your existential crisis. You're 50.
If some of the listeners don't know what an existential crisis is, can you unpack it?
My version.
I think I know, but I don't know how I can articulate it.
Sure. So both of my breast cancers work really well for this. My first one, I was 36. My wife and I were looking to have children. I was diagnosed with breast cancer completely out of the blue. I woke up one day with a 3-centimeter tumor, and my entire life was derailed. So that's an existential crisis. Chemotherapy meant that I became menopausal in my mid-30s. It meant that we didn't have children. It changed everything I had planned and dreamed for the future of my life. Right?
So the word is existential. It's like your existence.
Yes.
It's about your whole existence. What's it for? Is it real? It's so fragile. It makes you question. Just your existence.
Because the truth is, Deborah, we say goodbye in the morning to our loved ones when we head off for work with an assumption that we will see them later when we say, see you later. But if we were to be honest with ourselves, it's not true. We know it's not true. When I work with cancer patients, one of the things that comes up is this real understanding that what has changed, we've lost our mortality virginity. Right? Until we get hit, it's not just cancer, but any life-threatening diagnosis. When we get hit with a life-threatening diagnosis, all that sort of belief that we're going to live forever, even though we know it's not true, but we all kind of have it. It's one of the ways we get through our day-to-day. It disappears, and we have to rebuild ourselves it's kind of like from the ground up, but with none of that Pollyanna kind of belief that it's all going to be okay. And so while I've done a lot of work on myself and I thought I had, by the time I had my second cancer, having recovered from the first one, having got okay-ish with my childlessness, not by choice, to get slammed again a second time was just so destabilizing. And anyway, I found existential therapy so helpful that I went and did a doctorate in it and took 5 years to train in it. And it is like improvisation. And you and I started as improvisers. It is like saying yes to what is rather than fighting for what we don't have. Yes, I have had some really ghastly diagnoses. Yes, I have had to go through some horrible surgery and chemotherapy and some hormone therapy. And it was all hard. It's acknowledging that the hard is hard, rather than pretending it's okay. Because our culture would love us to all pretend it's okay. It would love us to have people ding a chemotherapy end of chemo bell and go, well, that's fine. But largely people come for cancer therapy afterwards when everyone is saying, oh, you must be feeling great now. And they're going, I don't even know what to do with what I've been through. That's when they need support.
That kind of therapy acknowledges or makes it possible for you to acknowledge that your very existence has been sharply brought into question.
Yep.
And you now have to go on living every day knowing that anything could happen tomorrow. You could fall down a manhole, but you now are more acutely aware of that than the human mind possibly should be. Because we normally are like,
yeah, sure.
And until that happens, we are in this state of everything's fine and it's going to continue to be fine.
Exactly. And our culture is so death averse and illness averse. It doesn't want to acknowledge those things. And that's why charities like CoppaFeel, like Breast Cancer Now, like all of them are so needed. And even though I struggle with the excess pinkery of October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I do still think it's needed, because there is this willful blindness to acknowledging that breast cancer is killing more women in Britain than any other cancer, that
Yeah.
we have rising numbers, and that across the world, if we were to pay proper attention to it, we would probably say it was at epidemic proportions. It's not nothing. And I know
Yeah.
people
Well,
get tired with the fuss, and they go, oh, but there are other cancers, and they're right. But the numbers about this one are the most terrifying.
Stella, I've known you for many years to be an expert storyteller and comedy performer. Do you have, as somebody who has lived through breast cancer twice, do you have a story that you would like to tell us that encapsulates something about that experience, but also brings your trademark joy?
I do, Deborah, actually. So, in 2000, when I had my first breast cancer, I had just over 6 months of chemotherapy. But at the same time, I was working with our friends in Probable Theatre, doing a show called Life Game, where we interviewed people live on stage and performed their life. We did it at the National, we did it at the Lyric Hammersmith, we did a UK tour, and we were taking it to San Diego to go off Broadway later in the year. Now, I really wanted to do the show. I wanted to do the show even though I was having chemotherapy, radiotherapy, even though I'd had surgery. I wanted to do the show. And brilliantly, Lee Simpson, our mate, said, you can do the shows for as long as you want. You just need to tell me when you can't. And I was like, okay, fine. So I was using a cold cap during chemo, so I didn't lose all of my hair. I'm a feminist, but I use a cold cap. I needed to look as much like me as possible for the show. And the trip to San Diego, so that we could then later in the year, when I would have finished treatment, go to New York and be off Broadway, coincided with the last of my 6 rounds of 3 different types of very brutal chemotherapies. And I went along and I said to my oncologist, who I'd had to explain what freelancing meant, because he didn't get that at all. Because they're just like, well, take some sick pay, take some time off. I'm like, I've been a freelancer since I was 17. I don't get sick pay. I have to keep working. And I said to him, this show is going to America, and it coincides, as we were doing 4 weeks, with my last chemo. Can I take NHS chemo to America and pay an American hospital to pump it into me? And he went, oh, we don't do that. No, that's not a good idea at all. And the chemo nurse was fantastic. She said, actually, I think you should say yes. I think if you say yes, then Stella will be able to keep working. It will be good for her. She will feel more positive towards the end of chemo. Anyway, they finally said yes. I had to go to the hospital and I had to fill out so many, because chemo is poison, right? I had to fill out so many forms. It came in a box that was yay high, a foot by a foot. 3 different lots of chemo, each one of them labeled separately, each one of them packed separately, and it had to be kept cold. So it was all it was a sizable box, and it was taped around with a tape that said poison. It literally said poison. Like police tape or hazard tape, this tape said poison. I had to take it to customs at the airport, and I had to get in, and it had to be signed off by the plane's captain. So the pilot, the captain, had to come and sign it off. And so I got to meet the pilot before I went. And anyway, so finally I get on the plane, and it's fine. And I'm exhausted because I'd had my second to last chemo the day before. Because in order to be able to do the show, I had to have the chemo, fly out, then 3 weeks later have the chemo in America, and then fly home. So we were there, and I finally came into San Diego. No, it was San Francisco airport first. So that was the getting into America. And then we got another flight to San Diego. So the getting into America meant that I arrived at customs. It was a 12-hour flight. I'd had chemo the day before. I was utterly shattered. I was coming towards the end of my months and months of chemo. And I was going through customs and they were looking at this box and I did this whole, it's fine. I've got all the papers. I've got cancer. And I was a little hysterical. I was going, I've got cancer. I've got breast cancer. It's in my right breast. This is the chemo I need. It's really important. It's really important that you just put them through. Ideally, don't put them through the machine just in case it. And I just did this whole big rant. And all of these people were staring at me. And I must have said, I've got cancer about 25 times. And this poor guy was just looking at me and he went, yeah. We're just looking for fruit and vegetables. And I was like, oh yeah, that's no fruit and vegetables. And he went, off you go, have a nice day. Welcome to the States. And it was such a beautiful moment because I was in such a state about being the cancer lady. And this man, he just wanted to check that I wasn't bringing any fruit into California. And it was kind of, and he was so sweet. He didn't interrupt me. He let me have my big, I've got cancer. And it was a really beautiful, I mean, it was very funny, but it was also a lovely grounding moment in the way lots of funny things are. I was like, oh yeah, and I'm a person and it's just customs and he's just got a job to do.
Yeah, nice. Plays very well into your existential therapy.
Yes, it really does.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stella. We're joined by Senior Health Information and Engagement Manager at CoppaFeel. CoppaFeel is the breast cancer charity with a mission to speak to young people about why chest checking is important. From festivals to university campuses, from TikTok to shower cubicles, they are there to raise awareness of breast cancer. She is here to talk to us about the work CoppaFeel is doing. Please welcome Emma Walker.
Woo! Good morning.
Hey.
Could you just, first of all, just tell us about CoppaFeel?
Sure.
Where did it come from? How did it originate? And what is it?
So we're the UK's only youth-focused breast cancer awareness charity, and it all began with twin sisters, Chris and Maren. Chris was diagnosed with secondary breast cancer, also known as stage 4 or metastatic. And she was 23. She was very young when she received that diagnosis. She had to keep going back. She had symptoms. She was told she was too young for it to be breast cancer. It was probably nothing serious. And then by the time she received that diagnosis, it had spread to other parts of her body. And it got them thinking. So Chris and Maren just wanted other people to be aware that breast cancer can affect anybody. So any age, gender, ethnicity. They weren't aware at the time that it could affect you at that younger age. And it was initially an idea as a campaign, and it grew into a charity. And that was 2009, and we're still on that mission to spread awareness across the whole of the UK. So it is very much that focus on awareness and education. So educating people on breast cancer, what to be aware of in terms of signs of breast cancer, and empowering them to go and seek advice and advocate for themselves in those healthcare settings as well, because we know our bodies. We know when something's not right, and if you've noticed something unusual, you do really need to go and get that checked out. And we know early detection and early diagnosis can make a huge difference to the outcomes for people.
Emma, but that education needs to be for the medical professionals as well, right? Because the story you've just told, the medical professionals were the ones who didn't get it. I was a lot older. I was 36 with my first breast cancer. But even so, I was told, oh, no, you're too young. It's not in your family, which most breast cancers aren't, by the way. And I was kind of dismissed for like almost 2 months. And by the time they found out, my tumour had grown as well. So it's partly the medical professionals who need that education, right?
Absolutely, yes, they're in our strategy. So we've got younger audiences there, and then a secondary audience is healthcare professionals, particularly thinking primary care. That's the first place you're likely to go. You are likely to go to someone like your GP. And that's a lot of the work that we do in the education team. So healthcare engagement. So I run training sessions for healthcare professionals on breast awareness and why we exist and why it's so important. We go to conferences as well, go to healthcare conferences and have stands and have those key conversations and really outline that. Firstly, they need to encourage people to just that broader body awareness. You need to get to know, you get one body. Let's get to know what's normally there, and get into a healthy habit around checking. So we would suggest monthly for checking your chest. And then also that key point around referrals. So referring people into to suspected breast cancer pathways, or to breast clinics themselves for further testing. And we do reassure our audiences that you're not necessarily going to be told you have breast cancer, but they need to rule it out. So that's where you need to go for those tests and other, really to make sure that you are getting the right outcome as well. So lots of work happening there, definitely. And we're very lucky we've got medical advisors in the charity as well who are really passionate about what we're doing. So our medical advisory group are ambassadors for us as well. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot more we can do in that space, definitely.
And what led you to work with CoppaFeel?
I'd heard of them as a really amazing charity, I think, because, and I'm a similar age, well, I am the age Chris was when she died last year. So I think I was sort of, feeling incredibly fortunate that I was getting to live my life, but seeing her on social media tackling secondary breast cancer, but in the process, spreading the awareness message across the whole of the UK. So I'd heard of CoppaFeel on Instagram and knew of them as a charity who talk about a really serious topic of breast cancer, but with glitter and bright and bold colours, with the aim of reducing the stigma, essentially. So taking the fear away. As Stella mentioned, we need to have those conversations about breast cancer, about checking your body, checking your chest. So also closer to home, really, because my mum and her mum were both affected by breast cancer. So it's been in my family, and I just am really passionate about sharing information and the right information and getting that out to people in an inclusive and accessible way as well. So that's a lot of my role, is the health information, getting it right and tailoring it for our audiences, because we're talking to people who are under screening age. So really, you've got to be checking yourself. The national screening is from the age of 50. So before then, it's all about checking yourself and getting to know what's normal for you.
Can I
And
ask? I'm really excited by you saying checking your chest,
Yeah.
because I'm a trans inclusive feminist,
Yes.
and it really disturbs me because A, cis men get breast cancer,
Yeah.
chest cancer. B, non-binary people get chest cancer, and C, not all trans men have top surgery, and so sometimes trans men can, and even if they do have top surgery, because I have friends who've had a double mastectomy and their cancer's come back. So we know that chest is a more inclusive term, but I'm pretty certain some people would find that annoying or irritating. It sounds like a check your chest actually has some lovely alliteration as well, right?
Yes.
And I was really excited when I had a look at the CoppaFeel website this week in preparation for this to see that you're saying chest. It feels really lovely and generously inclusive to me.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's we like, I've just got a resource to hand actually that's got guys, gals, non-binary pals. So we're trying to,
Brilliant.
absolutely right. We're trying to talk to everybody. So chest is not so gendered, as you say. There is a clinical need. We will still refer to
Oh,
breast cancer, breast awareness, and those who might be breastfeeding as well. Unfortunately, it can affect people during and after pregnancy as well. But that was really our aim, is to be as inclusive as possible. We want everybody to relate to our message, and we have opportunities for people to choose their terms as well. So we've got a checking tool called the self checkout, and it's a web app. And on there, at the start of the user journey, you can choose what you prefer to say. So whether that is boobs, pecs, chest, or breast. And that's really important, because then you're more likely to really engage with this sort of key health behavior and health messaging. But yes, we do say that. We do say chest and chest checking, and I talk about that in those clinical settings. So when I'm talking to healthcare professionals, I give the reason why, really, and explain that it is for everybody. And we work with other organisations. So Outpatients, you probably know them, Stella. They're a cancer charity for trans and non-binary people, and we created a bespoke resource. So it used fruit imagery, so moving away from any gendered
Brilliant.
imagery, and it's got fruit icons to show potential signs of breast cancer there. So that is really important for us as a charity, that we are inclusive and accessible and reaching everybody.
Yeah,
Well, it does take the stigma away for men, because I know men who've had breast cancer, and that for them, I think, it can be, if you're a cisgendered man, it can be kind of really challenging to think of yourself as somebody who has, breast cancer, because that's not the kind of, no one saw that coming. So I think calling it the chest area, it sort of includes everybody, and it makes everybody feel like more likely to check, which is the most important thing.
Yes.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so
Yes.
what activities do CoppaFeel have planned?
Oh, we have loads. We have a van. We have the CoppaFeel mobile. So we go out to events. We've been going to freshers fairs, so having those conversations in student areas about checking. Been to Scotland to have conversations with the women's teams there as well. They were really keen to try and talk about, again, starting a healthy habit. We have our brand partners, so you'll see lots of partnerships happening there, and proceeds coming through to us, and also Breast Cancer Now events. I'm doing weekly webinars as well, so if anyone wants to hear a bit more, I'm doing a little plug here that there are every Tuesday lunchtime 1 till 2, just giving an overview of the charity, some of that key messaging I mentioned, and the information and resources that people can access, free information and resources to help them in that checking behaviour as well. So lots and lots happening this month.
So what can our listeners do to help CoppaFeel spread their message?
What can they do to help? Well, firstly, check yourself. Start at home. Start with that. First step is to get to know your own body, because breast cancer is a symptomatic cancer. So there's often a sign that something is unusual or something has changed. So firstly, have a good look and feel of the whole area, and we mean up to the collarbones and in and around the armpits. That's all breast tissue for everybody. And ask others around you, are you checking? I would really encourage visiting CoppaFeel.org. So have a look on the website for resources and support to actually get started. And then
Does that show you how to check your own breasts, your own chest?
we've got things like the chest checklist. So we worked with Black Women Rising, created a video, and it's got a person in the bathroom actually sort of going through checking and also talking through what could be potential signs of breast cancer. But we do say you're not looking for cancer, you're getting to know your body, and you also don't need to memorize all the potential signs, because they will be on things like the shower resource. So you can stick this up, it's waterproof, and that's just a prompt.
Brilliant.
It's there ready for you. I'm glad I had this handy. Yes, that kind of thing. Also, free monthly text reminders. So the first of each month, everyone's busy. The months fly by, but just that prompt monthly. So texting check to 82228. You get a free reminder from us, and it's usually a pun or a rhyme or something lighthearted again, but just saying that kind of note to self: have I checked this month? Okay, let's make it a conscious effort. And of course, raising vital funds. So if anybody wants to get involved in any fundraising activities, that would be brilliant. While there's loads of conversations happening in October, we really want that awareness to happen all the time. So lots of ways to get involved.
Wonderful. So we all need to go to CoppaFeel.org.
Yes.
And people can access that around the world. It's a British charity, but anyone can go there.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. We would just say that information and guidance can slightly vary in other regions. So yeah, but have a read and definitely get to know everything, and then become familiar with what's happening in your region if it's different to the UK. But definitely visit copperfield.org, and then we've got our CoppaFeel social presence as well. So Instagram, I'd say make sure you follow us on there as well, because we post about everything that's going on, but with that key messaging throughout as well.
I think there's something so key. Sorry, Deborah. It's so key though about encouraging people, particularly younger people, to get used to their bodies, their own bodies. I mean, this goes back to what we were saying right at the top with the, we're still struggling with the internalized fat phobia, the size phobia that we all live with because this is our culture. So to encourage people to go, oh, this is what my body is like.
Yes.
I mean, I think the work of Black Women Rising is phenomenal. Leanne Perry's work has been amazing in that area, because for a long time people only ever talked about breast cancer in white women, and we, the stats really mean we need to be more inclusive around other ethnicities. But for us to know our bodies as they are usually is so important. And in a cisgendered female body, that body changes during our cycle.
Absolutely.
And because we've been told to shut up about our cycles, pretend that we're not carrying tampons, pretend that we don't leak, pretend that our breasts don't leak when we're breastfeeding, because we've had to hide all of that, what ends up happening is that we get sort of taken at one remove from our bodies. So encouraging people to get to know the body they have, it's a really important. I'm so delighted you're doing this work because it's huge.
Oh, thank you.
And
sorry.
And it does make it an ordinary conversation. Somebody told me once that she found a lump in her breast and asked her doctor about it, and it was a male doctor, and she said he seemed he said, "Oh, how did you find it?" Like he was a bit disgusted, and she just said, "Oh, my boyfriend found it," because he didn't seem to think that she should be feeling her own breasts. So she just said, "Oh, my boyfriend found it," and he was like, "Okay." And like, doctors should be, and that was a long time ago, but doctors should be encouraging everybody to know their own body and feel their own body. And I think we do avoid our own body sometimes because of internalized stuff that we've got going on, but we do need to check our chest area, our breasts, as much as possible. So this is such a great thing to have these resources. Is there misinformation out there that we need to avoid, Emma?
There can be, particularly thinking on social media again. Do make sure it's coming from a trusted place, like a charity like us or the NHS or elsewhere. So yes, I would avoid that. And also the rise in things like the AI summaries, they're pulling information from various places. So it might not be relevant to the UK. So we're doing quite a bit on working on SEO and that kind of thing as well. But always looking out for, we, for example, have the PIF tick, so the Patient Information Forum. So it's a quality mark. It's showing that this information is trusted and reliable, and just taking it that extra bit of time to make sure what you're reading or watching is actually accurate, and then getting the right advice. So booking that GP appointment, and really, if you need to, insisting a little more and saying, I've noticed unusual changes here, I need these checked out. And I just wanted to note, when we were talking about getting to know your body, that's why we're quite broad with breast awareness, as opposed to any kind of prescriptive self-examination, nothing like that, because it can prompt some health anxiety. And also, if you're experiencing any kind of dysphoria or maybe undergoing any form of surgical transition, it will take time. So we do say, get to know what a new normal might be for you, and at different stages of life. But yeah, really not putting too much pressure on yourself to get it right necessarily, but taking time to, and also finding the right time and place. So we often say the bathroom, because you've got a mirror there, and you can have a check before your shower, that kind of thing. But if that if there's a different way to do it, then do that. You know, what works for you is going to be best.
CoppaFeel deals with young people because they're less likely to check, they're less likely to have a mammogram. You're very engaged, Stella, with people going through menopause because of, is it because of the chemo rather than the breast cancer?
Not always. With breast cancer, some of the if it's a hormone related cancer, people will often be given tamoxifen, letrozole, other Zoladex, other hormones that stop their estrogen production or lower their estrogen production. That often, almost always, not everybody, almost always sends them into menopause. Now, the menopause may only last as long as you are on those drugs, or if you are like I was in, the average age for menopause globally is 48. The average age in Britain is 51. So I was 36, and because I was edging towards what was and perimenopause is 7 years either side. So globally, you could be 41 and be menopausal, and it's not young, it's not early. But I was definitely officially young for menopause, but my chemo kicked me into menopause.
Right.
And at the time, 25 years ago, all of our telly celebs weren't talking about menopause. No one was talking about menopause. It was so lonely. I was having hot flushes while having chemo, while doing theatre, well, improvising. No one was making jokes about it. No one, in order to make it okay, back to our leaky women's bodies. No one wanted to talk about it. And while I am delighted that we are now talking about menopause much more, as someone who's researched in post-menopause and how thriving and brilliant a phase of our lives that can be, it's a little worrying that we are making young people so nervous about menopause. It's just a transition like all the other transitions, like pregnancy, like puberty, like becoming infertile is a transition. They're all just transitions. What is really good now is that there is organizations. So Danny Bennington, who was a younger woman who had cancer, founded an organization called Menopause and Cancer. And it's so valuable, and they have a lot of medical information. They have a lot of resources from people who've been through it. And there's quite a lot of thinking about what it is to be a lot younger than most people are in menopause, and what that's like to live, and what that's like to be hearing everyone talking about, oh, it's so terrible for me to have menopause at 55. I'm not denying that the symptomology can be extremely difficult. I lived it. It can. But it's a whole other thing if you're going through that at 25 or 35, when everyone else and your mates are having their babies and all of that stuff. I've worked with young women on these, and the problem is that the hormone blockers are good. They do work. There is good research proving that they can be valuable, but they don't fuck with your body. And that's really difficult. And we are not including those people in our talks about menopause often enough. In the same way that menopause is very, the story is often very white, and we need to be including Black women, brown women, people of color, whatever gender they are. We really need to be attending to what our cancer treatments do and how rarely, largely, not always, and it is getting better, but a lot of the time a cancer department will only have the resources to work with you through the treatment. That's why the charities are so important, because they can work with you afterwards. It's never just the treatment for anybody, whether it sends us into an early menopause, whether we bounce back from it physically. It's always the effects of having had to face that, having had to go through such a difficult thing. And experiencing menopause because of your cancer treatment is a real double whammy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is a great extra piece of awareness, because if we are talking about young people who wouldn't necessarily be thinking about breast cancer, they still should be out having a lovely time and needing to be just more aware so that they can catch it early. We also need to be thinking about what the impact of that might be.
But can I also add, Deb, because I don't want to scare people. it is always better to know where you are than to be frightened and not to know. And our
Yes.
medical profession is getting better at supporting us. I benefited from outpatient psychotherapy help. I've been the person giving that psychotherapy help before now. We are getting better at it. The charities are really helping. So I don't want to scare people off finding out. I do want to
Yes.
say, if and when you do, and if and when you need help, there are plenty of places out there that can support.
Wonderful. And yeah, the more, I mean, I always quote Felicity Ward's therapist who says, avoidance is the maintenance of any problem.
Yes.
So
Oh God,
whenever we
yes.
avoid it, if we think, oh, something's wrong, but I don't want to know,
Uh-huh.
we carry the anxiety and also we exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, the
Potentially.
anxiety doesn't go away just because you don't know. In fact, it grows. And then you're living day
Absolutely.
to day with that anxiety.
Absolutely. We should finish up. So can I just ask, Emma, is there anything you came to say you didn't get to say?
I think we've got everything. Yeah. Text reminders.
Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything you'd like anyone to do?
I suppose
No,
I know
no problem if not.
I did. Oh no, think of a big list here. No, I know I mentioned the self checkout tool. That is one of our key things that we try and drive people to. So I'd encourage everybody to visit the self checkout. So that links out from our main website, CoppaFeel.org, and that is your checking tool. So especially if you're getting started, it will take you through. We've got some great animations, step by step, and really accessible as well. You can do it on your phone, do it on your laptop, anywhere you like. So do have a go at the self checkout, and afterwards at the end it lets you set reminders, so whether it's calendar, text or email reminders as well. So visit the self checkout. Thank you.
Great. Stella, is there anything you came to say that you didn't get to say?
There's a thing that I fudged earlier, which I'll do now, but you may or may not want to keep it in. So I'm a feminist, but I had a breast reconstruction after my mastectomy. In retrospect, because I'd already had radiotherapy, I had a DIEP reconstruction, which is where they use stomach tissue. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't do it again. I now feel buying into a male gaze view of what my body should be shaped like. It made my surgery much bigger. It took a lot longer to heal, and it doesn't feel the same from the inside. I ended up writing a piece because I talked to my consultant about this, and he said, oh, this is so useful to know. It doesn't feel the same from the inside. So I wrote a piece for the BMJ, which I know lots of breast surgeons have gone to. And my consultant said he started to talk differently to his patients about it. Rather than saying we're doing it on how it looks from the outside, we need to know how it's going to feel from the inside. And for me, it was disappointing because I really didn't care. It wasn't about how I looked from the outside. I wanted to feel the same on the inside. And the reconstruction doesn't feel like me. It still doesn't after all this time. I really believe this is a very personal choice, but my personal choice at the time isn't my personal choice in the long term. It's just my truth.
Interesting. So something to think about.
Yeah.
For some people, it might be very important, and
Absolutely.
there'll be certainly people listening who'll go, "Oh, I feel very differently about that."
Totally.
So it is personal, but it's just something to think about.
It is
Absolutely
also
something
really
to think
important,
about.
and I'm delighted my consultant did change his language on this, that we know that it will never feel the same from the inside. Because it's not.
It's an important point. It's an important point. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate having you here. Emma Walker from CoppaFeel and Stella Duffy. Thank you so, so much. And then I'm going to say, if you want to see the Guilty Feminist live in London, we have some dates coming up. On the 2nd and 16th of November, we'll be at the Museum of Comedy in Bloomsbury. On the 4th and 10th of November, we'll be at the Pleasance near Caledonian Road. And on the 23rd of November, we'll be at the Bill Murray in Islington. For more information and to book, go to guiltyfeminist.com and click on live shows. You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Frances-White, guest co-host Stella Duffy, and our very special guest Emma Walker. The Guilty Feminist theme tune was composed by Mark Hodge. The producer was Tom Slitzky for the Spontaneity Shop. Thanks to Gina Ducia, Zainab Mohammed and Ned Sedgwick, as well as all of you for listening. For more information about this and other episodes, visit guiltyfeminist.com.